Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Creative Raids. I'm here with my girls again, Sophia and Charlie. This is the last week that you're gonna have the Power Trio. In the other weeks, we're gonna have the Power Trio plus extra guests, so that will be interesting. And I wanted to talk this week on something that I think all of us have been deeply involved with, which is the international life of game developers or game business and traveling around the world, attending events around the world, and all the pros and cons, the good, the bad, the ugly out of it. So welcome, girls, again. And I wanted to start with tell us a little bit on how your international life has been so far, and how did you start on that?
Yeah, do you want to go first, Charlie?
Okay, yeah. So I grew up in a very, very small farming community in northeast of Scotland. I think there was about 50 people lived there and about 1,000 sheep. And I moved from there to Fuzhou, China, which is a very small city in China. So it was only 13 million people. I was the only Scottish person there. It was like real culture shock. So I stayed there for 8 years. I came back to Scotland because it's my home and I missed it, but stopped off in Italy for a year on the way. And I'd already traveled a lot before then, but starting in the industry and just getting kind of those itchy feet, like I've been in one place too long, I don't like this. And so now I travel a lot. I think the most was October last year when I was in 7 different countries. Um, I'm from now until the end of August. I'm not going to be home. I leave in a couple of days and then I won't be home to sort of August, which is exciting. I see new places, new cultures, new people. I get to make friends all over the world. And this is just amazing. And if there was any way to take airports and airplanes out of the equation, I would love it more than ever. What
How
about you,
about you,
Sophia?
Soph?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I'd say is actually, I quite like the airports. Quite like the airports. I quite like the airlines. I find that they're actually kind of a little bit of my relaxing time, my downtime, to be honest, because what I find is that with this lifestyle, you're always on, you're working at home, you're looking at screens, there's all this sort of stuff going on. Whereas when you're in the air or at the airport, it's kind of me in a book, or it's just me in a game, or it's limited options. So I do actually like those elements of it. As for me, I also grew up in the countryside. I grew up in rural North Wales, a small city it is, second smallest in the country, of about 3,000, 3,500 people. After university, though, I decided to go to Japan to live my dream. I wanted to go and explore Japan, Japanese culture. I'd always been obsessed with Japan because of games and everything else to do with that. It's a story for another day. Went to Japan, came back, got started in games after doing a master's in Japanese, and went back to Japan. Then came back and got started running the big indie pitch, which took me all over the place, to run big indie pitches in every corner of the globe, really. And then now I'm back in Japan as well again.
Nice. I think I'm the only one that wasn't. Well, I was born in a small city, but I never lived in a small city. And Brazil is a little bit like China. It's like small cities are 1 million people. So like now, well, China is an extreme of this, but I was born and raised most of my time in Brazil, and there is no gaming industry. Well, there is a gaming industry in Brazil now. There wasn't a gaming industry in Brazil when I was there. I think I needed to leave for things to kick off, like there might be. But I always say 14, but I have been doing the math. I think it's 13 and not 14, which is great because 13 is my favorite number. But I lived in 13 different countries, visited a ton more, and I have been on the road for about 25 years. But yeah, I like traveling a lot. I prefer when I can spend longer periods in the place.
Mm.
I don't enjoy as much when it is go to a conference, you have 3 days of work, go back. Like I'm
Yeah.
usually knackered when I'm back. But I like when I can do, for example, what I do every year. They go, okay, go spend 10 weeks, 12 weeks in Asia, and then you can really spend time, go around. I'm still gonna travel around Asia, but you have more of a feeling of I have time to settle my sleep schedule, to organize my work schedule in the right way. I am a bit of mix of both. I do like the flights. I'm enjoying the flights less lately because unless you can pay for business class, they are making the seats smaller and smaller.
Mhm.
Sophia is tiny, but I am not. Usually my behind is as big as the seat, which doesn't make it super comfortable. And but but I do agree that it's a time that I have an excuse from you cannot reach me, you cannot send. I am out, and I
Mhm.
can pick up on all the bad films that I cannot watch at home. I will watch on the plane.
I think
Everything that the kid to watch. Yeah.
I know it's something we're going to go into, but I think it's one of those things that if you spend a life traveling around, doing lots of stuff, being plugged in, you have to find time to look after yourself, and that can be hard. So I always find that the airports and the planes is kind of time that's forced upon me to look after myself. It's like you have very, very finite options in my case.
Mhm.
And the truth is, I'll normally have my Switch and or my 3DS and some games. I'll normally have a book with me. I'll normally have my iPad with me. The reality is, I'll end up sleeping the whole thing. So, that's what normally happens on a plane with me. I fall asleep, and at least I got some sleep.
There's that.
Very
Yeah.
true. That was actually that goes as great segue for my next thing. Like, what in your opinion are the pros and cons? And I can actually start with mine. Is that for me the pros are the obvious ones, like that Charlie also mentioned before, is meeting people, being in new places, trying new cultures, being able to I love networking. It was one of the reasons that I started the career that I started. Is something that I do well and I enjoy doing. So yay, it's always good when those coincide. Um, and traveling allows me to do that with different people from all over the world, and I enjoy that. But for me, the biggest downsides is, besides what Sophia mentioned, that we hardly ever have time to take care of ourselves because work never stops.
Mhm.
And work never stops. It's amazing how people will still have stuff for you to do when you're back after 2 weeks of events. But it's also the fact that I noticed that the older I'm getting, the longer it takes for me to recover from air travel. I noticed that, for example, the differentiation of pressure, the seats, all these things, it takes me slightly longer to feel like myself again, or the time zones, like jet lags, take me longer to recover. I think it's a mix of both traveling for a very long time for over the years, but also age is getting to me, even if I don't want to, but it's getting to me. How about you guys? What do you think are the pros and cons of this lifestyle?
I mean, there's so many. Like, it's very similar to you. I love getting to go to new places, making friends in new countries. So, I'm just back from South Africa. I made amazing friends there. I'll be going back there. We've managed to work a project that can work in that area, so I can go back there. And this is the industry we're in, that we're able to, even going on holiday, you're still working. And I was in South Africa on holiday, but I was still working, and being able to find a way to make that a valuable trip for not only myself personally, but also for the company I work for. I love excitement of seeing new cultures, of experiencing, not as a tourist, but as the local people experience things. And when you go to conferences, we always make sure you've got at least one day either side to recalibrate, to relax. But for me, with the amount of travel I'm doing, I think days, times, these are things that happen to other people. I just go along. When I wake up, then it's the morning. When I go to bed, it's the nighttime. I've very loose track of what time or even day it is for the most part. Um, I think definitely as we get older, it takes longer to deal with jet lag. The day after a lot of travel, or particularly a long flight, is always a write off day. That's a just be on the sofa, Netflix, relax. There's nothing else for you to do today. Your brain is mush. And as long as you can accept that you need that one day to just veg out and drool a little, then that's acceptable. I think it's when you kind of try and push yourself to do that and then get back to the work emails immediately because they will still be there tomorrow. Um, that's part of the issue. You need, and the self care, like you were talking about, taking that one day just to, today I am potato, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, it might be something that does and doesn't apply to people depending on your situation. Uh, Although, despite saying that, I think it will always apply to everyone at some point. But maybe it's sporadic for some people, but maybe it's a regular thing for most. For me, there's the obvious things like jet lag. These are all negatives. I don't really suffer from jet lag. I think that's because, as I alluded to, I sleep most of the plane's flights. So it
You're
you know,
so lucky.
and I can sleep on cue. No, because most of the positives you said are what I would say. It's seeing new cultures, it's meeting new people. I mean, who doesn't want to see the world? I'd go on a round the world trip tomorrow if I could. I'd just be
Mm-hmm.
completely traveling all the time. Um, but I think one of the downsides, which is something people should prepare for, is we often, as humans, think of all the positive experiences. That's just human nature. So, you'll tend to tell a story of how amazing GDC was or how amazing this other show was. And what you might forget is, at least in my case, I've done a lot of shows solo and they're fun and they're cool and you meet new people, but they can also be quite lonely at times. It can also be a lot of time of you just on yourself, but you're not around your home comforts. Now, don't get me wrong, that as the negative is definitely worth it for a lot of the positives, but it is still worth bearing in mind. The other thing with that as well is if you also work remote and travel a lot and travel alone a lot, it can also be kind of hard sometimes to sort of make friends in your local area, set up a base in your local area because you're traveling so often that you're not there often. Now, like I said, this might not apply to everyone, especially if you travel as a team and you're always as a team. Those sorts of things may or may not affect you. But I think it's worth bearing in mind that it probably will affect some people and it may even affect those in teams every now and again. For example, if it's like, oh, well, I've got to go on this trip on my own. So that's my biggest negative. It definitely doesn't outweigh the positives at all. The positives outweigh it, I mean, look, it's very lucky. We talk about privilege in today's society. I mean, it's very privileged to be able to have traveled the world for work. It's what
Mm-hmm.
dreams are made of, and I'm very aware of that. It's amazing, but not everything's a not every aspect of even good things is a bed of roses, and it's worth bearing in mind that you should be comfortable with yourself and your own thoughts and find things that keep you active. For me, it's, if I've got nothing on and I'm somewhere on my own and maybe it's a show and a country I've never been to, so I don't know anyone, I will grab my book maybe and head off to a coffee shop. Just sit and chill and take in the atmosphere and soak it in. That's a really good thing rather than, say, for example, sitting in the hotel room, at 3 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
There is some two aspects that I think was touched upon but not deep. Is that one thing is the fact that it is a privilege and it's something that a lot of people dream of. Like
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of people say, "Oh my God, your life is so amazing. I would like to have that." But there are like, and it is a real privilege. It's amazing. but it's not the rainbows and unicorns
It's
that
not a
people
holiday.
think.
No,
Yeah.
it's
No.
hard work.
No,
Hard
not a
work.
Yeah,
holiday.
it's okay. And the other thing that I think very few people discuss is the way that they that put on family and friends that Sophia brushed upon, but it is that is
And
I'm
pets.
very lucky that I have a husband that it's so calm and relaxed that he is already used to the fact that I am not home all the time. But I know that there would be husbands and wives out there that would go and say, no, if you
Mhm.
want to have a family, you need to be home. What are you doing? I have friends in the industry that had to choose to change their jobs or change their schedule to be able to be with their kids because they haven't been with their kids for weeks and weeks at a time. And I think that's some of the downsides that most people don't talk about. Like and even right now, like uh, Sophia is in Japan. I miss her dearly. I can see Charlie all the time. I can just 1 hour flight and I'm at her doorstep. But Sophia, we need to make full plans to be able to go see each
Mhm.
other. And I see that it's great that we can go and live where we dream, but also means that all our friends and families have to do it. We have to do adjustments on
Mhm.
how we're gonna live our lives, right? Like it's not, yay.
It
No,
is
I mean,
also, it is things like, oh yeah, I was just gonna say, it is also things like missing parties that people are having. You'll be all, it's awesome. You're in, I don't know, let's say Berlin, and it's cool. But also, it might be that all your friends are having a party because it's Saturday, not a special one. It's just a Saturday night party, and you're missing it. And you have to bear those things in mind. I think the other thing I wanted to quickly add before you jump in, Charlie, as well is, and it might segue into our next topic, but is the other thing is it's exhausting because when you work in the same office every day with the same people, and then you go home and you're in your same network, you don't have to introduce yourself 9 million times a day, and you don't have to deal
mhm.
with that opening conversation flair of like having the same intro all the time about what do you do, what are you here for, my name's Sophia. And if you're in other countries, maybe throwing in a bit of another language in there as well, flipping between languages. um that's hard when you do a life not just abroad, because if anything, if you live abroad, you slowly start to get into that groove. But if you live a life where you're constantly moving, that is something to bear in mind. Is it's tiring because you will constantly be introducing who you are, what you do, why are you here, where are you off to next, should we do another meeting somewhere else. That, that's constant. That, hi, my name's Sophia, I run the Big Indie Pitch, what do you do,
No, absolutely. And a couple of points. One, touching on what you just said there. So I had tickets for a band, Afghan Wigs. Like I have loved them since the early 90s, and they were finally playing. And I bought a ticket, and I couldn't go because I was in Malta. And it's like, oh no, I'm in Malta. So you do miss out on stuff like that. But I was also in Malta, which was amazing. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, if I've got a laptop and Wi-Fi, I can work anywhere. I can go anywhere and I can work. And that's the freedom that this job gives me. But I mean, I joke when I go to conferences and that I only have a house so that my cat has somewhere to stay. And I only have a son, so I have someone to feed my cat. So it's my son's now 23, so it's he's old enough, and it's giving him a bit of freedom away from his mom and independence and blah blah blah. But my cat hates me.
But that's the point. Like you can do that now
Oh
because your
yeah,
kid is 23. Like if he was 5, it would be a completely different conversation, right?
yeah. But when he was 5, I took him with me, and we went and went to different places together. So he's had his fair share of travel. But I think it's not a lifestyle for everyone, put it that way. Some people they see the glamorous side, like, oh my god, which country are you in now, that's what I meant. And other people just think, no, no, not for me. And you find out very quickly if this is the lifestyle you want or you don't. And I'm not saying this is something that is a sustainable lifestyle, not that you can be I'm almost 50. I don't think when I'm 60 I could still be living this kind of lifestyle. But I don't know. I don't know. There's only so much space I've got on my arms and legs for new country tattoos as well. So that's going to limit how much I can travel.
Yeah, that's the thing. Charlie does a tattoo for every country she goes.
Uh,
It's gonna be a comic book by the end of the life.
I think what you say though is a really valid point. It's like what we're trying to do here is weigh you up with balancing pros and cons and pros and cons. And there
mhm,
is pros and cons. Now, we're talking it from a point of view where the pros, of course, outweigh the cons because you're seeing the world, meeting all these amazing people, you're on the road, but being
mhm,
respectful of the fact that there are cons. You might be there being like, it's awesome that I'm in insert city, San Francisco, but I'm missing out on a friend's party. Maybe it's their birthday party and I'm the one missing out. But,
mhm,
it's amazing. But that's because we love that life. And it is also important to respect that. I mean, outside of games, I know friends who, when I say it, they're like, oh, it's awesome you're going to these places. But I couldn't do that. And I wouldn't want
mhm,
to do that. I would love to go to that place on holiday for 2 weeks, get to do whatever I want, go on all the tours, sit on the beach, and then come back to my nice life. Whereas what we do is go, obviously soak in the culture and see these places through the lens of work, do a load of work, and, hopefully grab one day at the start or the end for yourself to go and
mhm,
see the one highlight of said location, you know, um, and that's worth it. But for others, I think it is important, especially to anyone listening, don't force it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. You don't have to live up to a life that other people love. Equally, that goes other ways. I could listen to people all day long telling me about something, but if I know that it doesn't necessarily blend in with who I
mhm.
am, then my point is just, be aware that if, if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine.
And, and also, if
And
you're
that
going to
comes
a
to, oh,
conference, oh,
sorry, go,
sorry,
Charlie.
no, if you're going to a conference and say you're going to I don't know, it's GDC in San Francisco, and it's like one of the or Gamescom. It's one of the world's biggest games conferences, and you're in a new city, and it's going to be amazing. You also need to understand you're going to be standing on your feet for at least 12 hours,
Yeah,
and walking for miles. Sometimes you're not going to get to eat. Um, Day drinking is something that happens because everyone's got alcohol around. Different booths are giving out food. If you are eating, you're not going to be eating healthily. As a vegetarian, I'm almost sick of pizza because that's the only vegetarian
yeah,
option. So these are the downsides, but these are the downsides that for me personally are worth it because I do get to go and see my friends go to
yeah.
these conferences. I get to spend time with my friends. You get to make new friends. You get to do the networking, the socializing, the business. But it's not that we go to these places and then we just sit on a beach drinking martinis or, relaxing by a pool. That's not the lifestyle. It's really hard work, which is why that day of just potato at the end of it is so needed.
But I love that Charlie and I think so. Like that was the question that I was going to ask, and she answered before I asked the questions. Like, because as the gaming industry is truly international, and especially after it was always international, but I think after the pandemic, people realize more than ever that um, traveling is important, but it's not necessarily the only
Hmm.
way of doing the job. Because I think before the pandemic, people divided quite well of I work in the office and then I go to conferences and that's my life. And I have friends that have been in conferences like 35 times a year. I did that in my first years, but with the game in the gaming industry after the pandemic, I think there was a shift on things, and but still there is a full new generation of people that see this life in conferences as a dream, and
Hmm.
maybe didn't they didn't experience that yet, especially if they started in the last like 2 3 years, because the pandemic hit quite in the middle. So what besides what Charlie did that already hit on, that is what should people expect more when traveling for conferences? Because I think there is a lot of misconceptions of, and also what should they do? Like, what are your favorite tips to say, look, how can I make this trip worthwhile for me as a person and for me as a professional?
I would say the
I
first one
think
is
the
invest in a really good pair of trainers, like a really good, comfy pair of probably more expensive than you think you should pay for a pair of trainers, but they will pay you back um, just by supporting your back and your legs. Like, don't do my first conference. I wore Converse and I love my high tops, but no, no, it was not good. So trainers and drink water, lots and lots of water.
I would say, and I would say this because it's like I'm a bit like a broken record when it comes to this, but I would say have your elevator pitch down.
Hmm.
Like what I said, you're going to be introducing yourself over and over and over again. Have your introduction down to a sentence or two. Like, hi, my name is X, plus two sentences of what you do. Are you a developer? Are you press? Are you a publisher looking for, a scout looking for games? What, basically, what do you do? What do you want? And I don't mean that what do you want in a rude way. I don't mean it as in like,
Mm.
what do you want from this person? I mean, like, what is your reason for being at the conference? Like, are you looking to promote your new game? Are you looking to learn because you're in the early stages of development? Are you looking to try and I don't know, meet a publisher, or are you just there to connect with people? Be honest about that. So I would
Hmm.
basically say, like, who are you and what are you doing there? And nail that down, because you're going to be saying that over and over and over again. And if you can keep that concise, you'll grab people's attention, make yourself memorable. Um, and then the other obvious one is get people's contact details. I don't necessarily mean you have to be like the business card or LinkedIn maestro getting it off everyone. I just mean take the contact. What I tend to do is I get contact information from people, and then after the show, no pressure, just hit someone up with an email saying, basically, it was really lovely to meet you. And I tend to ask, not let's grab a meeting and talk about whatnot and the other, unless there was something actionable from it. I will often say, what shows are you going to next? It'd be great to grab a drink. Basically keep that connection
Yeah.
rolling. And I mean that obviously from a business point of view, but given the nature of our talk, I also mean it from a friendship and relationships point of view. There's people who I've innocuously met at one show who a year later are a good friend in the industry because we just hang out at every show and grab a drink and just catch up and get to know each other bit by bit by bit. So I do mean it clearly from a business point of view, but I think that's a bit obvious. I'm also talking about, if your life is going to be on the road, make those connections, because they're going to be like your conference friends that you're seeing when you're doing these things, and they can help counteract what I was saying before about maybe you could be a bit lonely from time to time.
Yeah, it goes exactly on what I wanted to say, which is don't go to talk to people purely having them in the mind as
Yeah.
clients or
Yeah.
partners. I
Yes.
think the biggest mistakes I see people going is this business mode is this
Hmm.
you come out as obnoxious, salesy, and nobody wants to talk to you.
Hmm.
Go talk to people with a open heart and a true interest in what are they doing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not always about business. You might not do
Hmm.
have any business with those people, but they are human beings that are also working in the same environment that you love, and just go meet them and really connect. Because if you think about it, and there is there is something behind this, is remember that the gaming industry changes really
Mm.
fast, and the person today that is an indie developer that probably has not much to offer you in a year can be the director of a company that you really want to connect to.
Yeah.
And if you mistreated that person a year ago because that person was not of interest for you, then that's it. You close the door on the person. You can't don't be that kind of person that, and we know many people in the industry like that
Mm-hmm.
go after you or after people only when they have something to ask. No,
Mm-hmm.
be the kind of person that is like clearly interested in other people, that are helping other people, connecting people, be the glue in your, and the events will be a pleasure for you.
No,
And to add
absolutely.
to
It's
what you've just
about,
said,
oh,
this is
it's
kind of
about
like a,
building
sorry, I was just going to say,
relationships.
like, yeah, this is kind of like a golden rule for conferences, not necessarily travel, but the point is, when we talk about travel, we're talking about going to conferences largely and things like that.
Yep.
And part of this about, making human connections, personal connections, that sort of stuff is, don't book meetings back to back, or whether it's meetings or
Mm-hmm.
parties, don't be like, it's 7 till 8 and then I'm going to be at the next one at 5 past 8, because both from the point of view of what we said about you running around, being stressed, being anxious, but also, look, leave a bit of a buffer time, because you might just get chatting, it might be really lovely. And you know if you sort of say to someone, "Oh, I've got to go in 20 minutes," that's cool. Not like, "And I've got to go now. That was our meeting time. I'm done. I'm out of here." It doesn't look so great for that. And also, you'll find yourself running around a bit mad a lot of the time. So always leave yourself a buffer between any meetings. And also, the good thing about leaving a buffer as well that's really helpful is, if you then do finish that meeting, uh, the amount of people you might just bump into. Most of the people I know in the industry are not necessarily from fixed meetings. It's from people I just bumped into on the show floor, went up to their booth and said hi at a party. So, a lot of it will be spontaneous, and that's great, but it's also, you've got to bear that in mind, because that can be a bit stressful if you want to have like a strict plan. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, if you like plans, plan for spontaneity too.
True. Charlie, you wanted to add something?
No, it's just a little thing to add on to what you said about the way you approach people, the way you talk to people. It's about building relationships, not about assessing someone. What can I get out of you? So no, build relationships, build friendships, and maybe this year there's nothing we can do together. But as you said, it moves fast. 2 years down the line, there might be a project where I think, oh, I know that exact person. So if you do business cards and you get someone's business card, always write on the back who it is, because you'll come home with a stack of business cards and you won't have a Scooby who anyone is or what you talked about. So always try and, even if you just make a bullet point or two on the back of a business card, that's going to help you as well. And definitely do the follow up emails.
Yeah, just don't write on the back of the business card while you are in Japan. It's
Yeah.
extremely rude for Japanese people. Like, if you write it in private so people
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Like, there are certain I have one last question before we go, but I just wanted to add, going back to the travel and networking while traveling, is be very sensitive about local cultures. Do your research, know where you're
Yeah.
going, who you are meeting, how you're supposed to act. Don't be that person that thinks that everybody has to adapt to you because
Mm-hmm.
you are the foreigner in the room. Don't be that person. I think is the worst is, if you're going to go to Japan, Google. Ask people that live there. Get some info. If you make minor mistakes, nobody is gonna crucify you for that. But show an effort to be respectful to the locals, and the same thing everywhere you go, because even inside Europe, every different country has different customs, different culture, and showing that you have interest really makes a huge difference when you're meeting other people. And that's in conferences or in a coffee
Mm-hmm.
shop on the street. It doesn't matter.
And it enriches your actual experience there anyway, because you know how to behave. Even so, every country I go to, I at least learn how to say thank you, please,
Yeah.
beer, ashtray, so all of these really important words. And that's something really nice. And it means you can not converse with people, but it means a lot to other people if you're taking that little bit of effort. And it's also fun to learn as well. I can swear in
True.
many languages now.
I have one, like, I have a mission to make the podcast shorter, so I have one last question, and it's a very simple one. What is your, or maybe it's the most difficult one ever, let's say, what is your favorite place ever? Like if you could choose, say like, no, you can't travel anymore. You have to be in one place. What would be that place? And I know it might be the hardest question I have ever asked.
I mean, for me, it's quite clear. I'm in Japan. I love Japan. That's no secret. It wouldn't be a surprise. So I would say Japan. However, also I feel like there's been some surprises. I'm sort of cheating because I'm going to name a few places, but Japan's clearly like a place I adore and love. And I also, I live here. I've learned the language. I love Japan. It's been my life's work in many respects, in form of language and culture and learning about it and understanding. But um, the thing that's been so amazing about the travel is it's thrown me so many like surprises as well. Like I when I went to Korea, I fell in love with Korea. I really love Korea. But also one of the massive ones that people who know me will say, and there's so many I would love to shout out, so many places I would love to shout out. But I really love Tallinn as well in Estonia. Have been to Tallinn quite a number of times for work. I absolutely love Tallinn. It's amazing. And another place I'd shout out is Vancouver as well. But there's just so many places I love. But yeah, there you go. There's my short answer, but I totally cheated.
You are allowed to cheat.
I mean, okay, if Sophia's allowed to cheat, well, fine.
Sophia's allowed to cheat. You're not, though. I'm joking. Yes, you are allowed to cheat.
So for me, obviously, being Scottish, being very proud to be Scottish, and this is why Scotland will always be my base. I cannot leave. I've done the living abroad for extended years, and it was too hard, particularly as there's only 5 million Scottish people. So in a city of 13 million being the only one, it is very, very isolating. So I would have to say Scotland because it's my heart. However, I love Malta. Like I'm happy to split my time between Scotland and Malta. I love Gansby, Kleinby in South Africa because I was there and it was a really beautiful experience. I love Peru. There's not been anywhere I've gone where I've gone, oh no, don't care for this place.
Yeah,
And
same.
everywhere, there's places I do go back to and visit because because I've made friends there or because they hold special meaning for me or I've had a really good time. And then there's always new places to visit. So as long as I can keep Scotland as my base and then still travel, then that's what I'm planning to do, which is the exact opposite of what you said. But I'm a rebel, so
Yeah.
bring it
It's
on.
exactly not the answer to my question. It's like you cheat. You went more than cheating. You went like, nope, I'm not gonna answer this. That's it.
No,
Um, I have places that I visit and when no, I don't care for those. I have a few. I'm not gonna name them because I probably have to go back to them a few times in my life still. But Japan has always been my favorite place and will always be. Although Sophia and I had this discussion many times, lovely place, love it to bits, far from perfect. There are tons of problems anywhere you go. There isn't a perfect place ever anywhere, unfortunately. But
Or
I'm
fortunately, I think.
surprisingly, yeah,
I
or
was just going to say,
fortunately,
I
yeah.
think the fact that we're all different and flawed, is often looked at as negatives, but isn't that what makes life so unique and interesting?
very true.
100%. But surprisingly, I really like Ireland and Scotland. And Charlie can punch me later, but for me, I see Ireland and Scotland as one thing. Not Northern Ireland, but the Republic of Ireland. I find it very similar to
We're
what I saw
cousins,
in
yeah.
Scotland. Yeah,
No
cousins.
love for
Yeah.
Wales. No love for my precious
I have
Wales.
I love Wales, but I have to admit I'm not sure I have been in Wales.
I'll show you around. I'll take you
Yeah,
around.
we still have to do that road trip around Wales. Like I cannot say I think I have been in places there. I'm not sure I know it was Wales. So, uh, Well, but with that light tone, I want to end it today, and I'm making it shorter on purpose. I notice that people's attention span is not the highest, so I want to be nice to everybody. Next week we're gonna come back and we're gonna have a guest, but it's still a surprise. I'm not gonna tell you, but it's a really cool guest. And I think we won't have Charlie. Charlie is gonna be invading Dubai next week.
Yes.
So Dubai, prepare yourself. Charlie is coming.
Yeah.
Because we
Topic
but yeah, yeah. Oh, hi Charlie, as long as you're not exchanged by camels, it's all good. We need you back eventually. But guys, have a lovely week. Thank you for listening again, and we see you next week. Bye.